All right, what's up, everybody? This is Alex with Swamp Rat Fishing, and this is Bass and Brews, episode 3. Tonight, we're going to have Bobby roast beef from the Jigs and Bigs podcast. Before we get cracking, first, I want to talk about Hookset Hoodlums, the best team out there right now. This team won their sticks. We're going to talk about it tonight. The whole team has been just dropping bombs the last couple weeks. So make sure you head over to hooksethoodlums.com. You can throw in promo code Swamp Rat Fishing, all one word, get yourself a discount. And before we kick this off, Cape May Brewing Company, crushing it, because that's the day that we've had today. This is going to be an orange IPA. What do we got here? 8% alcohol. Bobby, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking a staple Western Massachusetts beer. This is Amherst Brewing Company's Jess.
Ooh, that's good stuff.
IPA. Yeah, this is wonderful. We ordered dinner from the hangar earlier this week, and I went in. I was like, I better pick up some beer for this podcast. I gotta be, got to make it happen. This is really good. I love a good New England style, a juicy IPA.
Absolutely, as hazy and juicy as it can be. And I don't know if you follow Paul Glass. We're already going to start off the rails. This is wonderful. Paul Glass on Instagram. He's been tagging Monster Energy Drink. Yeah, I'm going to start tagging Cape May Brewing Company. Let me try to get that Cape May Brewing Company sponsorship.
You should, man. Every single thing that you have going on, like in every picture, you should absolutely tag it. Like when you're
throw a beer in there.
Yeah, like whatever it is. Like I do stuff for my watches. Like I do the same thing. I'm like, I take a picture holding the fish. If you can see my Belova or my Citizen, I'm like,
right.
I don't know that it helps anything. I haven't gotten any free shit, but
so I've only seen one guy. Do you know who Greg Blanch is on YouTube?
Name sounds familiar. If I did search,
so he's a kayak guy. He was from New York, and now he's on the West Coast. He primarily fishes the Delta up in NorCal, and so he's actually sponsored by Sierra Nevada Brewing Company. It's amazing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. You're a beer guy. So
yes.
You listen to Paddle and Finn, right?
Yep.
Okay, I love Paddle and Finn. All those dudes are amazing.
Top notch.
I was listening to an episode of their show, and there's a company that has award-winning craft beer that is alcohol-free. I think it's called Athletic Brewing Company. Have you ever heard of this?
Oh, no. I saw this at the, we call it the soda store in my house, so my kids think that we just drink a lot of soda. Yeah, I saw that, and I was really confused by it, because not only is it like they've got IPAs, but they've got a double IPA, but it's all alcohol-free, so I don't understand what the double in it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's still the calorie count is still crazy for a lot of those styles of beers,
Right.
So I mean, it's not like it's light in that sense at all. But
they had like at least 5 or 6. They had a stout. Yeah. They had all these different beers, but they're all alcohol-free. I mean, that's good for folks that I guess don't want the alcohol.
Exactly. Like if you're in recovery or something, I get it. I got to come up with a good nickname for the cannabis dispensary, though. That's what I got to come up with over in my house. What kind of store do we call that?
You got to put that up on a pole. Like Dad's going to the Puff Dragon.
Daddy's going to the candy store.
All right, everybody. If you guys don't know, this is Bobby Roast Beef. He's the host of the Jigs and Bigs podcast. So Bobby's a really good dude. I think we first met, in November or October.
Yep.
Around that time. You reached out for me to come out on your show, which I thought was amazing. I think a lot of folks who do this whole Instagram, YouTube game, we all know that you got to have some clout or whatever you want to call it. But Bobby reached out, and I was like super early in the account, just trying to like start speeding up kind of the whole process. And I thought that was really awesome. Since then, we've chit-chatted, we've talked. You're a big part of Hookset Hoodlums too. And since I joined, I've got to kind of get to know you more, which is awesome. Oh, wait, hold on. Ramon's got it right there. Dad's going to the garden center.
The garden center.
Oh
man. Genius. Hang on. You earned it.
And as you guys can hear, if you guys haven't heard Jigs and Bigs, this guy has a top-notch podcast. It's got production. It's got great content. You're going to get yelled at for not wearing your PFD. All of it is just solid.
You are. Not by me so much, but yeah, you'll get all of that for sure. And if you don't read the rules, you don't read the fucking rules.
He's gotten on me for that. So Bobby, tell me about how you started the podcast.
So, all right, this is an interesting story. So I had, if you followed Jigs and Bigs at all, I had only started bass fishing in like 2012. And I had always wanted to do some kind of content creation, but I didn't really know a damn thing about bass fishing and always kind of discredited myself. It's always just one of those things that I always do. I'm very self-deprecating. Like, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. And then eventually a buddy of mine that I had, I actually stopped fishing for like a year. There is, if you're one of our Patreon followers, there's a video and a react to it. And it was like, I almost killed my best friend when we were out fishing. Like we were out on some water and we had rented a boat and it almost went really, really badly because we were just stupid. And I was like, I just don't think I'm any good at this. So I stopped. About a year went by and another buddy of mine, who actually I was just talking on the show, he just joined that 6-pounder club too, and got his PB over the weekend. And he was like, we got to go and fish. And ironically, he asked me to go and fish at the one spot he and I both caught our recent PBs at. So we go over there and I'm like, I'm just fishing a weightless Senko on a spinning combo. And I hook into a 3.5 pounder. And I'm like, here we go, man. The tug is the drug. Here's the relapse. And then I just went, I was going through this point in my life where like, I'm a really big guy. I'm over 300 pounds, but like I was much heavier at this point. And I was like, I was looking to kind of push myself to get outside more and get more active. So I was like, I love to bank fish. I'm just going to go and hit the banks 3 to 4 times a week as hard as I can, plus go to the gym and watch what I'm eating and everything else. And I dropped a ton of weight doing that. It was great. But part of that also was I got much more knowledgeable with what I was doing while I was out fishing. And a lot of that had to do with technology. So then fast forward a little bit, we're March of 2020 and COVID happens and my business shuts down. I have nothing to do other than fish. And once the ice, once we had open water, I was just like, every day I got nothing to do. I'm going to go and fish. I would find a retention pond just to try and find new water. I would just go and try and catch fish here, try and catch fish there. And I was talking with a buddy of mine and I said, you know what, man, I think I'm going to start a podcast because I've been podcasting for a long time. I've done talk shows. I've tried to do game shows and things. And it always works. And I love it. It's a whole lot of fun, but a lot of it's really niche, and I was just like, I'm not sure. I don't want to talk about trivia anymore. I don't want to talk about this. I just want to fish. So I'm like, maybe what I can do is sort of selfishly use this as a way to kind of document what I'm doing. And then also bring on guests and learn directly from them. So it wasn't long before I got 3 or 4 episodes in and the bug kind of hit. I was like, people are actually listening to this? Holy crap. Like this is a thing. And then I started meeting more and more and more people. And then I had, I've known Sean for a long time. We worked together in the 90s, like getting out of high school. Oh, wow. And yeah, we go way back. And I knew he was a very much more accomplished angler than I was, specifically when it came to kayak fishing. And I said, I had him on as a guest because I was like, he knows so much. He's got a ton of stories to tell. It'd be great. Had him on as a guest. Within a few weeks, I was like, you should be a part of the show. We developed this Sean the Fisherman program segment, and he would just kind of come on and tell his stories. I'd have guests, and the show just kind of grew from there. And now it's snowballed into this monstrosity of content where like we hit the 10K mark for our Instagram following. And I was like, I set that goal like stupidly, like knowing it was insane. And we did it in a year. We did it within a year. I couldn't believe it. So,
I can absolutely believe it, Bobby. You guys put out again, like you guys, when you reached out to me, I think, which is really funny because I think I was like 2 episodes, 2 weeks of listening to you guys. And then you reached out. I was like, holy crap. You know what I mean? And then watching from there, you guys were already almost at that, like that top level there. And then every week it's getting better and better and better. You guys aren't just rolling over and taking what's good and regurgitating. You guys are literally making it better every week.
Thank you, man. I don't even know, like, what it is necessarily that we're doing. Although I will say this. So one of the things that really inspired me was Andrew Hayes and his podcast, Tackle Talk. Mm-hmm. I love that show. It's so full of great content. That one, there's another one that is kind of a little bit dormant, I think, now. And it's kind of a shame. It's called The Bite.
The Bite was so good.
Wasn't The Bite great?
Those guys were so good. I don't understand why they stopped.
Like, well, I mean, I get like Matt's schedule is insane, and like everybody else has a bunch of stuff happening. So
but like Matt wasn't even on the most of them. I wanted the back cast. I thought it was the best. Like what is it? Like almost like universe building, right? Like you had SB Fishing on the YouTube, then you can get the rest of the crew on the Bite. On a podcast form. It was so awesome. Like they had it like perfect. They were so dialed in with their banter. It was awesome.
And I'll tell you, that's the one thing about podcasting that I saw that was sort of like there was something missing there. So like, there's podcasts that are amazing that are out there that are really consistent. Paddle and Fin, Tackle Talk, Dark Waters is really consistent. Like
Dark Waters is great. Yep.
There's a lot of stuff out there that's really consistent, but there's as much as there is in the podcast, that long form, specifically the audio only stuff, specifically in that niche. And what makes that so unique is that unlike a YouTube video, like when you're in your car, you can listen to that on Spotify and you can do it passively. Like I'll have earbud in and I'm washing dishes or cleaning the house and I'm listening to Tackle Talk and I'm just like, oh yeah, so that's what he's doing in these high current situations or whatever it might be. So there's definitely like a unique, I guess sort of reason why that market exists. But there's a lot of stuff like I'll give you an example. I think Ben Milliken's podcast was amazing, and talk about a guy who's got a million things going on.
Yeah,
like. I get why it takes a lot out to churn out like a quality show. Even if you're doing 45 minutes, an hour, 30 minutes, even it's like to plan it, execute it, juggle the schedule if you're going to have guests or anything, and then get it out regularly is a huge challenge. And you always want to keep that value level high for the people that are listening. But I got lucky, and it was actually invited to like sort of like a podcasters like roundtable with the podcasts that were featured there were Jigs and Bigs, Tackle Talk, Serious Angler, and Paddle and Fin. We had this great conversation, and I never realized that like we all kind of brought something different to the table, but I never really knew our role. I don't like to determine our role necessarily. Like I'd like to let it organically get created. And one of the things that they had pointed out, and I think it was Andrew from Tackle Talk had said, he's like, Jigs and Bigs is interesting because it's highly entertaining. It's almost like a fishing morning show. And I'm like, that's genius. That's exactly what we're looking for. He kind of nailed it. I mean, you guys are educational. You guys, there is some instruction in there from Sean and from you, but it is highly entertaining. And I think it's entertaining for everybody. Obviously, you guys are based in New England, the Northeast. So if you're from that region, it ties a little bit more to that region. But I think anybody could listen to. It's really funny. I put out those promo videos on Instagram. And a buddy of mine, he fishes on the West Coast. I know him from the Coast Guard. And he's just like, holy shit, you know that guy? Like, you're going to have him on? Like, this dude, I mean, this dude fishes like out in San Fran. And he knows who you guys are. And he's like, a lot of times I got to skip through some of the Northeast stuff. But like the bulk of it, like they even know you guys out there, which is awesome that you could hit that reach that far. Yeah, it's funny. We have probably about a quarter of our listening audience is based in New England,
right? But
the reach that we have beyond that is there's a lot of Texans, there's a lot of Floridians, Californians that listen. Plus, in the Midwest, like there's a whole ton of people that listen out in the Midwest, which just blows my mind. But it's funny because I almost look at that line of latitude from like Northern Virginia all the way across the country. If you're north of that line, like you can relate. You know what I mean? Maybe in like Oregon and Washington, you're not out necessarily slaying pond hopping and slaying bass as regularly as you might be out, catching, trout in streams or something like that.
Yeah.
But that's the one thing I will say about fishing content is I'm seeing a lot more embracing of multi-species. And you were actually a part of that from the get. I was like, I love the fact that you're out like catching crappie or focusing on one. I think it was specifically you were going through sort of like your breakdown of swim jigs.
Yeah.
And I mean, if I'm being honest, I was like, that is a presentation I need to work on more, like just your straight up swim jig. So I started watching that stuff, and I'm like, oh, he's out there catching multi-species. Like that is, I think that's the way to do it. You see guys like Todd Grubb and you that are like, they're really mixing it up. I'm huge into that.
Yeah, this was the first year that I did that, and I'm really glad that I embraced that this year because just going after whatever. I feel like what pushed me through this winter. It helped me make me a better angler. It helped me understand. So to find the crappie, which in a lot of where I fish, especially River X, that's the primary forage for these bass because we get these giant crappie. So to figure out where they are, then I know to where, we'll break the news a little bit here to where I could figure out where to stage my baits today, where I busted my PB. At 6.8 pounds, little ding for me there. But thank you, sir. 6.8. Stand by for Instagram all week. It's going to be there all week. You're going to be nauseated with how many pictures and how much I'm going to talk about it.
It's a good feeling, though, isn't it, man?
Oh,
holy crap!
I know we talked about it on the chat, and I don't want to. Today was epic.
Oh, yeah.
Not only did we have the video, and I got everything on video, like everything on camera.
Dude,
not only did I break my PB, but I also had so much heartbreak today because I'm an idiot and didn't bring a net. So
when you mentioned that reminded me because I was fishing that day with Chris Tabari, also Hookset Hoodlums pro staff.
Hookset.
Like Chris is awesome. Like he's amazing. Let me tell you, Chris is probably one of the most talented humans I've ever met. Like super talented. If you listen to I don't know, were you on for the Jigs and Bigs recording today for the podcast that's dropping?
No, I missed that one. I was out fishing, or no, I was putting my kids down, I think.
Oh, okay, so we recorded, and there's this one segment where we had somebody who called in playing the roles of two people. One of them being our intern Howie. That was all Chris. All the Russian accent and the English accent, which, by the way, the Howie accent that comes from an adult podcast that Sean had edited and pulled like tongue-in-cheek phrases from, and we staged that whole thing, and he just within a second nailed that British accent. Like,
that's
nailed
awesome.
it. I was like, holy crap, it's that dude. Like, Chris is a talented guy. So we're just out having a great time fishing. But I remember we left the truck and he's like, do you have a net? And I'm like, I do, but I usually don't take a net when I bank fish. I usually don't. Little did I know I was going to catch an almost 7, on my medium power rod.
Bobby, that's what happened today. Literally. So I listened to the podcast last week, right? Where you're describing all of this. And it was a great trip last week. That video comes out Thursday. Make sure you guys watch that. But I'm sitting there, and I'm going to be dead honest with you. I'm in the kayak, I'm fishing, and you're like, yeah, we didn't bring it. I was like, I don't need it. In my head, I'm like, man, Bobby's an idiot.
Yep.
Like, why wouldn't you bring that? You're an idiot. You know what I mean? It happens to the best of us, but man, you're an idiot. So I'm literally getting out of the car this morning, and I'm like, I look at the net, and I go, nah, they weren't that big last time. I'll be okay. And the first one that I lost, I went, oh, I'm an idiot.
I think you have the same net too, like the little folding, like super compact. So what's funny is I recently picked up a new bank fishing bag, a sling bag from Samurai Tactical. And like Samurai Tactical for the price, amazing, and it's lifetime guarantee, unbelievable. So I'm like, there's the same thing with my catch board. I don't carry that when I bank fish. It's only in the kayak. Right. But I've been bank fishing all spring, and I've actually been killing it. Like I've been doing great with it, and I love it because it's a whole other style of fishing. Believe me, I love getting in a kayak almost as much as I love getting on somebody else's boat. That's the greatest.
That's the money spot, right? When you don't have to gas it up. You give your money, right? But you don't have to gas it up. You don't have to pay the maintenance fees because I don't know if you ever heard the phrase, but BOAT is an acronym, right? Break out another 1,000.
Yep, and it's no joke. And actually, we have a member of the Hookset Hoodlums pro staff that may, within the next 4 or 5 days, be jumping into his first bass boat.
Is that I think I know who you're talking about. Yeah. That should be interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So when it comes to fishing, what would you say your style is? Are you power, finesse? Are you spot oriented, or are you pattern oriented?
So I'm definitely spot oriented. Definitely spot oriented. I like to try to be as versatile as possible, but for me, what comes naturally is more finesse.
Okay.
I will look at a spot and look at whatever cover is around and try to downsize or slow up as much as, like, I fish a lot of really high pressured waters too. But over the last 2 years, I've tried to get more and more focused on power fishing. I started getting into like wake baits and fishing a lot more top water, buzz baits and stuff like that. Last summer, I'd never really experimented much with top water fishing at all. And then this year, it was all about finding fish. Like, that's sort of my goal, learning how to find fish. And that's twofold. Like, I have some electronics for the kayak. I'm in the process of getting a new kayak.
Right, getting into a big boy boat, right? Getting into a big old boat.
Exactly. That's the plan. And so the electronics is one part of it, but there's a learning curve with there. And I'm really excited to dive into that and start breaking down like offshore fishing and like look for, really deep fish. And, because I'm comfortable throwing drop shots. But what I'm not comfortable with is like deep cranking. So I want to start trying to like focus on that. But the other side of it that I can work on immediately is the planning side of it. So I'll give you an example. There's a really, really crazy high pressure body of water. Well, I mentioned it on the show. It's called Wachusett Reservoir, right? And there's great trout population in there. There's Lakers. There's smallmouth in there, largemouth. I mean, there's tons of different species. But what makes this really unique is that there's some really deep holes. And locally, the ponds that I fish, like you might, if you get 15, 17 feet, that's deep. Here, there's spots that are like 40 to 50 foot deep, some of them, like really deep. And it's a drinking water supply, so there's no boats. All the fishing is all bank fishing, and it's a monstrous body of water.
Wow.
So we go over there, and I had, jumped on my Navionics app, and I looked at where we were going and figured it out. And then I looked at the weather and said, well, I'm going to expect them to be, a little bit on the deeper side. So I'm going to look for those pockets. And we found a spot. I went over there and I just started fishing a lipless. And that was one of the baits that I was not comfortable with at all. And even like jerk baits, same thing. Like, it was just one of those things. I would fish them so I could learn them. I've caught a couple of fish, but my new PB, I caught that on a jerk bait.
Right. Based
solely on the fact that I was like, I got to find these fish. And once I find them, then I'm going to go and find the big fish, and I'm going to start throwing a jig. Because when someone asked me the question one time, do I consider throwing a jig a power fishing technique or a finesse fishing technique? And it's definitely both to different anglers. But the way I fish it, it's very much less about it being on the fall and more about the retrieve, bringing it back. Gotcha. So it's a lot more finesse for me.
I think it's really interesting because I'm very similar. I'm very much somewhat finesse, like crankbaits. I'm not very good with. I have a ton of them. I love the 6 Sense crankbaits. They're amazing. I have tons of boxes of them. I barely catch fish on them. Yeah. Because I don't throw them. Top water, I don't throw a lot. And for me personally, it's because I was thinking about it today while I'm out there. It's because I'm worried about leaving fish. Like I wake up in the middle of the night thinking that I left fish that I could have caught. And it's much easier for me, and I feel like a lot of kayak anglers, to like kind of roll into a spot and they just pick that spot apart, just decimate that spot with top, middle, bottom, kill the whole thing, and then move on. That might take 2 hours, but you know that you've fully covered that whole spot.
Yeah. And really good days can make bad habits, Like I remember there was one day I was out fishing with Lip Cripper, Mitch Skase, and Sean. And I think were there other listeners that were fishing with us? It might have been. And I was throwing a BBZ rat, which is by far my favorite topwater bait. My favorite.
I am still very triggered and offended that you guys use rats of all things.
Oh my God, it's so you should embrace it. I do. I get you earned it. But I think it's a big fish collar. It's the knock. Yeah. It's that. as you fish it back. And I see a lot of people fish it really fast. I fish it so slow. I mean, I fish it real slow on an 8-speed reel, but that's because I throw it on my frogging setup, you know, and I'm it's huge. So I chuck that sucker out there, and like I've had amazing days where I'm like, it's almost like anywhere I go, I'm catching 16s, 17s, 19s, like huge fish. And I'm like, this is so easy. And I realize that like that is not the case, you know.
It's just the day
of it being on, and it was just made some bad habits, but yeah.
All right. So what are your top 3? I know you're a bass guy. So other than bass, what are your top 3 favorite species to catch? Salt or fresh? I don't know if you fish salt or not, but
I've fished a little bit of salt. I don't really have any saltwater favorites, necessarily. I'll say other than bass, I'm a big crappie fan. I will catch crappie all day. They're delicious.
Lab City
part of it, yeah, man. Like that was, in fact, that was one of the very first species I caught when I started getting back into fishing in 2012. I'm a catfish fisherman. You know, I love catching big cats. Even like small ones like bullhead, I'll catch those all day. Like they're cool, they're intriguing. And for a non-bass species, chain pickerel.
Yes,
I love them.
Give respect to the water wolf. Like,
yeah, I love them. Like, don't get me wrong, northern pike, they're absolutely amazing. But like, you can go and like have a great time. Like, there are people who definitely get pissed off catching a bunch of slime darts, and I get it, you know. But it's like they're just so cool, you know. They're water dragons.
They're so your water's different from mine. So here down in South Jersey, we deal with very small water. So you're talking about like, oh yeah, it doesn't get much deeper than 15. So today I was fishing high tide and that was 9 foot. That's as high as it gets.
Oh yeah.
Like that's it. It doesn't get deep, but I pulled that 6.8 out of there. I've pulled over 5-pound pickerel out of there, and I pulled them at low tide in about 1 foot to about 8 inches of water.
And that's a river system that you're fishing, right?
Yeah. Well, it's a tidal river.
A tidal river. I think there's something to be said about that.
I will. I mean, I don't want to pump it too much. It's not this Thursday, but next Thursday.
Yep.
This video, every single bass I caught was pissed. Like they were like, I stepped on their mom and called them the worst name ever. They were pissed.
Are they up on beds?
I caught one off a bed, like fully locked into a bed, like it was a male, and he was pecking it off of it. But all the other ones that I caught and all the big ones that I caught, they were all females. They were not. They were staging next to the bed. Yeah. I don't think they had been dropped yet because they were still full. Yeah. But normally, even on these tidal rivers, these bass are pissed off jerks. They acrobatics the whole time. They're jumping like they're smallmouth, and all these are largemouth. Like there's something special. And the pickerel do the same thing. They'll dog you all the way through to the kayak and then shoot off. There's just something special about the river fish.
I think that there's something to be said there. I don't know if it's, usually what Sean made the point is like usually about once a year in one of the biggest river systems that's local to us is the Connecticut River. And usually about once a year, you'll hear somebody catching a 10 in the Connecticut.
Yeah.
It's, the forage is there. It's much harder for those water systems to freeze.
Yep.
And, there's places for the fish to go, which, changes things. I mean, rivers, obviously you can have catastrophic stuff that's just going to deplete a fish population.
Right.
But like in the Connecticut, we've got sturgeon, know, like unbelievable.
Anywhere you got those sturgeon, there's going to be bass. There's going to be tons of life. Cause those, I mean, they're kind of particular, but once they're there, like everything kind of moves around that, I feel like.
Yep. It's crazy, man.
All right. So with your, so you've been doing jigs and bigs for a little over a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's your goal for this whole bugs and jugs empire?
Goal?
2-year goal. 2-year goal.
2-year goal. I would like to make this a point where I can start slowly leaving my own other business and make this like a career move within the next couple of years. And what that's going to include is going to be regular sponsors. You know, there's a lot of things, and the reason, really, honestly, this is interesting. It's not even about the paycheck so much. The reason paycheck has to be there so that I can have the time, so that I can experience so much more. Right. You know, we have guests, like we have for one reason or another, we have a number of guests that are in like the New Orleans, like the Louisiana area, and you know, we have an opportunity to possibly be in that area later this fall, depending on. Really on Sean's performance in some of these tournaments he's doing. So we could end up down there later in the fall. And I'm like, I just want the experience fishing with these folks and like learning these other waters that I don't have the access to necessarily. Like, I love to travel. So I'd love to be able to use the podcast as an excuse to do that.
I like that.
Fire Sean.
I like that. I kind of talked about it in the last podcast. This whole I like your view on that. Like, you're trying to push your content, and it might not be kind of what we were talking about last time with YouTube content. You're trying to push that podcast content, trying to take that fishing experience, that lifestyle that we do, to that next level, that extra level of work that it takes, and it does take. Like, you've got to devote time. You've got to grind. You got to get out there. And I think that's awesome. That'd be great if you could do that.
You know what's funny? A lot of people ask, they're like, you know, especially because I work in the events industry. I'm a DJ, and a lot of people say like, "Oh, who's your DJ hero?" And what I always tell them is Wolfman Jack. 100%. Wolfman Jack is my DJ hero, which kind of makes sense why I like podcasting so much, because of the radio vibes that it has.
Yeah,
but when you look at like where my fishing like is sort of like that, it's sort of twofold. The first one that I think of immediately is Mark Zona. That's what I would like to do. 100%. Like that.
Got the Mark Zona voice too, and that kind of inflict. I think you could kill it, man.
I agree with you. Thank you. I hope more people see that, because like I see Mark Zona and I'm like, yeah, that is the guy. But I'll tell you what, I didn't grow up watching Bill Dance. I didn't my knowledge of Bill Dance is very much like through other people's memories, mentioning his shows and his content. You know, I've seen stuff here and there, but like, he wasn't like the fishing hero necessarily to me, but he was just on Tackle Talk not that long ago. And he said something on there that was so inspirational for anybody that creates content. And I actually kind of already referenced it earlier on. And it's that the biggest hurdle is proving your value to the consumer of your content every single time, and trying to deliver that level every single time. And it's to the point where like you almost have to do it unconsciously. You can't actively be thinking about it. Otherwise you could be distracted from what you're doing and actually creating content. But it's like this underlying pressure of like, I want to learn more. I want to give more to the viewer, whatever that might be. And I was like, holy crap, man. Bill Dance was the OG YouTube fisherman.
Man, that like literally, that's a big truth bomb there. That's
yeah.
I have to write that down. That's some next level stuff. But I think it's important to talk about that. I think a lot. And again, the whole point of this show is to talk to. I mean, I kind of stole your idea a little bit, but not really. But I mean, to talk to the people that we see grinding on Instagram, that we see putting out content on Spotify and podcasts, that we see putting work out on YouTube, and just to talk to these, you know what I mean? Talk to you, talk to other folks about all of this, because I mean, we're all fishermen, but it takes something extra to put yourself out there.
Yeah,
you guys. I mean, you guys put out a great podcast. It's not like it's not like this podcast that's going to come out, right? It's not short form. It's not like. You guys put out a long form podcast in it, and it's great though. It's not like, I mean, we make jokes on the chat there, right? That you're the Joe Rogan of fishing podcasts, because these are some epic podcasts.
Yeah, but like 3-4 hours long, some of them.
But it's content, and it's good content all the way through. Yeah. Like, I almost wish I worked farther away than where I do. Just so I can get through that, you know what I mean? But it's good content.
That's why it's so good that we only do one show, because that's the beauty of podcasting. When you're listening in audio, you can put it down and pick it right back up. Right. And if you miss something, you might want to listen to it again. Like, there are episodes of my favorite podcasts I've listened to 4, 5, or 6 times, because there might be some gold that's hidden in there that I just didn't catch the first time around. And that's the thing I love about it is I don't like to think of podcasting like radio, like it goes into the atmosphere, into the airwaves, and then it's gone. When it's gone, it's gone. Unless somebody was recording it, making a mixtape. Mm-hmm. I'm dating myself.
I was about to say, what's a mixtape? What is it? No, I'm just joking. I know. Exactly. We're close in age. Not as close, but we're close.
Not as close. No. I have some years. Although I will tell you, Lockwood's got a couple of years on me.
I think Lockwood has a couple years on everybody. And that's just with life, though, too.
Just in life, yeah. Life, yeah, for sure. But what's funny is, like, everybody has the role to play. So it's like, it doesn't matter if it's the same content. Like, as long as you're organic, it's so funny, man. I try to do this same thing. Like, I'm not a cocky guy. I have never once in my life thought like I'm a great fisherman, nothing like that ever. I'm very humble. I'm a damn good trivia host. Like, I will say that because I know it. Like, I am damn good at what I do. And I have a lot of people that are always on my ass trying to find out what I'm doing next. Basically taking an idea that I've been working with for months and then regurgitating it on their own. So much to the point that I've actually started just doing clinics where people that use even the same software, they're like, I'll tell you all about it. Let's go ahead and do it. And the first thing I always start out with is, and this is, I truly believe this for any content creator. If you're not organic, your audience is way too smart. And people are stupid. People are really dumb, but they are way too smart to have you pull a fast one on them. Like, they're going to know when what you're doing isn't an organic thing. And they're going to, you're going to end up like, if you can't give them something that's like truly you, and you can't be comfortable in your own skin, you cannot put out content and expect it to actually have legs. You got to be organic about who you are.
And I think that's important in all aspects. I know we don't have a ton of people. We got 5 people. All 5 people, thank you very much for being in here. But for the replay and the podcast, I think that goes through all platforms, not just podcasting, not just YouTube. I'm going to speak specifically to Instagram on that, like having that true voice on that platform. Yeah. And if you're not on Instagram, I think you guys should be. As a fisherman, you should get on Instagram. Again, I met Bobby through Instagram. I've met Hookset. I met New Jersey Wolfpack, all these folks through it. It's a great community, but we can definitely spot out when you're full of shit.
Yeah.
When you're just plugging garbage pro staff just to get a 5% discount.
Or even if what you're plugging is amazing and you're like, it is fantastic. You feel like you're being read like a sales pitch. I listen to this all day. Oh, the podcast?
So Bobby's is on like every platform. I think you find it at the Smithsonian. It's in the, it's everywhere. But Bobby, go ahead. Where can you find your podcast specifically?
We're on. So what I like to say is I like to tell people, if you're a podcast person, we're on every major platform. So that's Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. Most of our listeners listen on Apple Podcasts. We're on Google. We're on iHeartMedia. We're on Amazon. We're on, you name it, our podcast is there. If you're not a podcast person, just go to jigsandbigs.com and you can go to our podcast page. You can stream every single episode right there for free, or, you can click a link and be to whatever your preferred podcast platform is, and, subscribe, rate, review, whatever it is that you want to do.
And if you want this crappy podcast that Bobby's on, I'm not as prolific. I'm just on Spotify, and YouTube. Hey, so I got a question.
Fire away.
From the Hookset.
Oh my God. Is this a Wild Bill question?
No, this is a Ken.
Oh, question. It's a Ken. Oh, this should be great.
All right. So Ken wants to know, this is underwater robberies. He wants to know, is it true that you are in fact the one that brought Sexy back, yet somehow Justin Timberlake took all the credit for it?
Well, behind every good artist, there's a producer. And, Justin is a talented guy. But, I'm going to be honest with you, I think the proof is in the pudding.
It's in the pudding.
Spit take right now at his screen.
Oh, boy. All right. What do you want to work on this year? We're going to try to keep it together. What do you want to work on this year, whether it be social media wise, whether it be fishing wise? I know you want to get better at the search baits. We've talked about that. But something like that, what do you want to work on? What's your major goal?
So this one kind of mixes the two. There's a lot of things that are kind of ongoing right now that are sort of like, I don't want to say like out of our control necessarily, but I kind of want to reel these things in. And the stuff I'm talking about is like the challenge videos. Like we have a lot of collabs that we want to work on with all types of different creators. And I want to start seeing those kind of like actually come together. Hookset's a good example of, really, really great and diverse content that's out there. I also want to start working on fishing events, this tournament that we have on in May, which, now is people can register and they can jump in if they go to Fishing Chaos and join our fundraising tournament. They can do that. Like, so these other little projects that sort of extend further on the tournament. We want to start doing events. We want to do some collabs. Like I'm talking about the Rocky Mountain Oysters video. Like that's something we want to actually work on, but there's so many people who want to do it that we have to start whittling that list down and figure out a date and a location to go and make it happen. Basically, I want to take, you've seen that Da Bomb hot sauce challenge video, right?
I have, and my stomach churns just yet. Nope. I don't even want to look at it. I can feel the pain now. Nope. We've talked about how unstable this tum-tum can be on your podcast.
That's right.
Yes, on multiple of your podcasts. Dude, that would tear me up. I can't even.
Yeah. This is, and I mean, I apologize when I had Bill and Andrew and Ken on.
Not for Bill. You let Bill take that.
Bill had a second chip. That's the thing. If you watch, he's like, "It's pretty good. You take another chip," and then
right.
But yeah. Drive around those foothills in Connecticut. That was turned it on me.
That interview when you guys were talking about that last week, and the banter between the three OGs was hilarious. But then blaming like, oh, it was the hills. Is that what it was? I don't think it was the hills. I think I'm with Andrew. I don't think it was the hills. I think it was the second chip.
I think the second
chip was the culprit.
Yeah.
All right. So what are your right now? You're in New England, pretty close to where I'm at. What are your top 3 favorite lures to use right now? We're talking pre-spawn, into spawn, kind of in that halfway mode. What do you got? Top 3.
Top 3.
And I want them from the bank, not from the kayak. I don't know if that changes it for you.
No, it's probably going to be about the same. Top 3. You watch that. Let's start with search bait.
Okay.
It's going to be a Bill Lewis rattle trap.
Why the Bill Lewis over the other brands?
Just because I've had the most success with it. Sixth Sense makes a great lipless crank.
Yep.
Strike King makes a great lipless. I mean, it's great, but it's just the Bill Lewis stuff has been around for so long, and I started throwing it, and I've just had the most results with it, and I would say probably in some anything I say is going to be some kind of a natural pattern. I always try to go with as natural as possible, even if the water clarity dictates otherwise. My school of thought is that these natural fish that are the forage for these predators, that's the way they're going to be seen in that water. So I'm going to try to, I'm going to in bad conditions, I might go with something that's got more vibration, like a chatterbait or a lipless versus like a bait. I would say, so it would be definitely a Bill Lewis rattle trap.
I like the Bill Lewis pull for that, and a lot of people. I mean, I love Sixth Sense. I fish a lot of their stuff. Oh, yeah. There's something special about the shape of that original rattle trap, though, because it's small, but it still gives out. So, like, what is it? It's a Quake for Sixth Sense, right? But that's higher. Like, that's a bigger profile bait. The rattle trap, the original one, is giving out that same vibration, but in a smaller package. So I I agree with you. I think that's a great bait, and especially if it's smaller forage, I think that's a lot better choice than some of those other brands.
And it's also like, especially this time of year, like you're saying, like pre-spawn into spawn.
Yeah,
it's. I mean, you don't get much flatter of a side than a rattle trap. You know, I mean, it is as flat side as it can possibly get, and it's got some good stuff.
Struggle, coming through.
Yeah, you might be so lucky if that's the case. Slips right. That's going to be one. The other one is going to. It is going to be a 6 cents bait because this is the jerk bait I got my last PB on.
Provoke
106 in bluegill.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just it's amazing how in cold water that bait will just like pull the e-brake and just unreal. It's just great action. I love it. It's a little bit large, but that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. Right. And then the last one is going to be. Where is it? Yeah, this little son of a bitch right here. A PB&G jig.
PB&G. Okay.
PB&G jig for sure.
I mean, you know me. I'm trying to learn these things. So, what kind of trailer are you throwing on that, and how you working it?
I am almost always going to use a Craw trailer. Almost always. When it's really, really cold, I'll use a chunk. And what I'll do generally is I'll throw up against cover, and as like especially like wood, submerged timber, I'll try to throw it right in there, or like bridge pilings or something like that. I'll throw it right up against there, and I'll always just let it hit the bottom. Once it's on the bottom, I just kind of let it sit and then hop it a bit and give it. I usually have like a cadence, almost like with a jerk bait. I'll drag it for so long, and then I'll drop down, reel up the slack. I'll give it a big pop, reel up the slack, and then hop it a couple of times, and then I'll drag it again. And then once I'm kind of out of what I would consider the strike zone, I just swim it back. Gotcha. But the reason why I like a jig so much is that you can do everything with it. You can do everything with, and actually with this specific style of jig, it lends.
What's the brand on that jig?
This one here is it's from Lead Free Bass Jigs. This is a Jigs and Bigs. All absolutely is what this is. But if you look at the hook, the way that's set up, it doesn't have a ton. It's not a super aggressive hook.
Yeah, no, that's got a open end on it.
It's kind of like, and what I'll usually do is I'll trim the weed guard down to about right here. And on this same jig, it's a 3/8, and it's not a super stout hook. So this rides, honestly, it kind of, and because of the head shape in the front, it kind of rides it's like a hybrid jig almost.
I was about to say that looks like a hybrid jig. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'll use this. I'll swim this with a Craw trailer. I'll actually even swim with a paddle tail as well. Or I'll just clip the top of the skirt, give it a haircut with a little like finesse skirt on top, and it'll work great as a finesse jig. It's not too big. It's one of those all around size jigs, like 3/8 ounce. For where I am, that puts in the work.
When you're talking about Craw trailer, are you talking about something fast moving? Are we talking about rage tail? Or are we talking about something subtle? Or are we talking about something in the middle?
I would say probably something in the middle. The one Craw that I really like a lot is I think it's is it Yum that does a chicker Craw?
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good sort of like, but I mean, I'm not picky. I'll throw any type of a Craw, and generally I'm always throwing green pumpkin as my trailer color. I'll use the skirt as like, a difference in whatever that presentation might be.
Right.
Black and blue jig. I'm throwing a green pumpkin trailer on it. It's just kind of the way I like to do it. It's as natural as I think it could be. Unless it's like red. I haven't messed with that yet.
I haven't either. I mean, well, I have. I've thrown it. So jigs become my obsession. Last year it was swim jigs. Dive deep into that. And now it's these bottom jigs, and I'm still looking for that elusive first one. But I love the jig. I think in my brain it makes sense.
Yep.
On why it should work, even more than like I'm right now. Like I'm primarily a worm fisherman, but by worm I mean like a weighted wacky, not even so much a Texas.
Gotcha.
That doesn't fit in my head. I was having a conversation, I think he's still in here, with Ramon Outdoors. Yep. We were talking about worms, right? And it took me a long time to realize, like, that worm isn't supposed to, in my head, that doesn't represent a worm to the fish. Yeah. And it represents a dying bait fish. So when you fish it on that weighted wacky, it's given that, undulation. It looks like a dead fish. So I love that the jigs give that like lifelike bait fish look. You know what I mean? That lifelike prey look. And I just love it. I just need to get that first one, but I love them. I dig it.
Well, it's funny you say that, like, about worms. When it comes to especially like stick baits, I oftentimes won't throw a weighted Texas rigged Senko, or any type of a stick bait like that. I will generally try to, if I'm going to use a weight, I'm probably going to Nico rig it now, if we're being honest.
Right. So I heard you talking about Nico rigging. So I got a little experience with Nico rigging.
Oh, all right.
You tried the Quiver Worm from Missile Baits?
No, I have, but a lot of people have mentioned that. Is it,
dude? Yeah? It is insane. So you can get it in two sizes, right? So you're going to get in a short one. I don't recommend the short one. I recommend the bigger one. I think it's funny story. Let's see here.
Oh, there we go.
Lift over. This makes great content as I look for something. There we go. Nope. Those are all Ned bombs. They're in the boat right now. Anyway, so I think they come in at like 5.8 and a 4.7. I would go with a 5.8.
Yep.
But what's great about them, have you seen the Missile Bait Ned bombs? Have you seen those?
Yeah.
Same bait, just elongated.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's just elongated. So it's exactly the same bait. You have the ribs all the way down the bait, and then it comes to that spade tail in the back.
Yeah.
So I throw a 1/8 ounce weight into it. And pro tip for anybody doing Nico rigging, take a lighter, light that weight, light it up real hot, and then shove it into the plastic, and it'll melt into the plastic.
Yep.
But then run your standard Nico hook off of that. Dude, it kills, and it gives you that long profile. Mm-hmm. But if you, depending on how you rig it, I do it with a collar, right? Like Yep. So I do that, but I do it to where you have this much worm up top and this right here, and this is where you hook into. So you have that whole top of the worm, almost like a shaky head.
That's exactly the way I do it.
Okay.
That's exactly the way I do it. Like I put that O-ring about like the lower third line, and I'll hook it there. And yeah, absolutely. You know what I've actually had really good luck with Nico rigging, and it's a drop shot bait, is what do they call that? Not the slim shit. It's a Guggen bait. The dragon drop.
Dragon drop. Okay.
The dragon.
That's a good bait. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I love that. I love that bait for drop shots, but I was like, we'll just give this a shot. And it's got like that tapered tail that comes out, and then it's kind of bulbous at the end.
Yeah.
And it's just like that. There's so much action there. Like I've seen people Nico rigging craws and like all kinds of stuff. I'm like, it's such a great presentation. But for me, like with a stick bait, if I'm not going to Nico rig it, I'll wacky rig it as well, but generally I'm going to fish it weightless and Texas rig it, and I'll do a small worm hook, and I'll fish it like a jerk bait.
Okay. Yeah.
Let it hit the water and just like pop it, and it's like nice and erratic, and it gets that great, like you said, that bait fish presentation. Like that's the beauty of stick baits. There's so much more than just worms.
It really took me a while to realize that, though, like an idiot that I am. Like I was like, oh, this is supposed to be a worm. Like, oh, my water's dirt brown. I'm gonna fish a light. Like I fish these weird. Yum Dinger comes out with this weird, like flesh colored worm. Not only is it weird, but it makes me like extremely uncomfortable. Yeah. How gross this color is. But that's all I fished to begin with, because I was like, that looks like an earthworm. Okay. And I will, like, there's memes about it. I was that guy who took a hook and took that rubber worm the first time I went out fishing when I started to do fishing again. And I took that rubber worm and I wrapped that son of a bitch around that hook like it was a night crawler, and I was so confused why I couldn't catch fish. And then I discovered YouTube, and I was like, "Oh, I'm an idiot. That's not how that's supposed to work."
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, stick baits are absolutely amazing. Like, I love a 4-inch stick bait. I'll take a small number 1, offset worm hook, and I'll drop shot with that right in the grass. It's such a great presentation. You pop it up out of the grass, and you'll get that nice little reaction strike here and there. And
I think that's important what you're saying, because you talked about that last podcast, or your last podcast, about how you're using a drop shot from the bank, but you're using it primarily like why most guys are doing it, because they're trying to get those suspended fish. You were talking about how you're using it to get above vegetation to keep that thing up top, which I think is a pretty cool idea and good for folks to know.
Yeah,
that you're working a little different.
Yeah, that's
because. Yeah, sorry.
No. It is. It's the name of the game. You got to get that bait seen, and to do so, like traditionally, when you're using a finesse hook or something with an open, hook point, you're just going to grab on a bunch of grass, and you're going to end up kind of fighting yourself, really. But if you can rig something weedless and drop shot, and sometimes it takes trial and error. You got to leave like a wicked long leader and then clip your drop shot weight so it's a little bit shorter, and that gives you room to extend it if you need to, because you can't go the other way. You gotta go, so it gives you a little bit of room to extend it if you need to. But then once you find like that perfect sort of situation, and it's almost like when they're really finicky to bite, and you can't get them to bite a lipless that you're just or a chatterbait that you're running over the tips of the grass, that drop shot comes in key.
Or that swim jig. Maybe you should try the swim jig.
That's the other thing too. It's like, well, it's so funny. I don't know if you saw the Hookset Hoodlums video where Sean and I did some catfishing. I caught a nice smallie. So that was my first time ever fishing an open hook underspin.
Right.
And I was like, well, because I had one and it was lead. I can't use it in mass. I'm like, well, screw it. I'm throwing lead.
I'm chucking. This one's made out of uranium. I'm throwing this uranium in Connecticut.
Why does the water boil when it hits the water? I don't get it. And I just, it was just one of those things where I was working that bait. Now, that's what got me thinking. I was like, maybe I got to start paying attention to swim jigs that are silent. You know what I mean? Where you're not vibrating a bunch of stuff. You've got the only action you really have is the trailer, and I've only thrown swim jigs 2 or 3 times. Yeah. And it was before I had real good confidence in using another, like an Arky style or a casting jig, or anything like that, or a football headed jig. So, that's another one.
I think you should look into it. Anybody who follows me on Instagram or on YouTube knows after last year, I love that swim jig. That is my number 1 moving confidence bait. You can match the hatch. You can slow it down. You can keep it up top. You can rip that thing through cover way better than a chatterbait. I don't care what people say. Yeah. You got thick cover. You got thick pads. You throw a chatterbait into the middle of that, you're clumping up. You do not get that.
Pick all that stuff up. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a swim jig, you won't get that. And depending on your swim jig, I mean, the 2 big brands that I like are 6th Sense and Beast Coast. You're not going to have an issue with that at all. That swim jig is going to come out when you're done with it and you pull it up. You're like, there's nothing on it. You're moving that bait all the way through.
That's awesome.
I highly recommend it, man. If you get a chance to, I think it's like changed my thinking on how we were talking about before with power and finesse. Because I mean, it's a moving bait. We consider that power, right? But it's a very finesse way to do that. I feel like I'm not missing fish. Yeah. Because I have a wrong presentation because I feel like it's so finessey, even though it's a moving bait.
Yep. It's so funny too, because like I've gotten really into throwing these tungsten underspins that are weedless. Mm-hmm. It's got the screw lock on there and you rig it, kind of like on a wide gap hook, and it works. They're fantastic. But, even there, it's like I've found that it's tough to find fish with stuff like that. That's the biggest thing. And that's kind of why I started to kind of focus more on lipless right now, is because of the versatility. But I could see a swim jig being just as versatile because it sinks.
Right.
I don't have to worry about a diving depth or anything like that. I can, kind of count where it is and then fish it back. So,
and being a kayak guy, I think that the swim jig would work great for you. Somebody put it great in one of the comments, like a swim jig is a very horizontal presentation.
Yeah.
Not so much a slanted as in, you know what I mean? Like a crankbait. Yeah. It's a horizontal. You can count it down. You can get it where you want it. You can fine tune it.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think that's the thing. Find some natural colors I like and just go out for the day and just freaking crank them.
All right, man. This has been a great conversation.
I love it.
Down with the ending question. It's a top 3 question. It's super important. It's super relevant to everything we've been talking about.
I love that. Those are my favorite questions.
What are your top 3 sandwich proteins?
Top 3 sandwich proteins. Oh, my goodness.
I feel like it's a really important question. It says a lot about you. This is really going to make or break on whether people like you on these proteins.
You're 100% right. I mean, I'm going to go. See, my mom, I'm half Sicilian.
Okay.
So you kind of know the wheelhouse that I'm going in here.
Yeah.
We're going to go with the trio. We're going to go with a hot capicola.
Well, it's got to be right. You can't do a mild capicola. You can't do a mild.
The hotter the better. I like a good hard salami.
Okay.
And a traditional mortadella with the almonds and the garlic and
all right.
Yeah, those are my 3. And I mean, if we're talking a sandwich like me, it's stacked with meat up to like about the size of my face.
Right.
And then, that's how it works.
All right, Bobby.
You're a Jersey guy.
Yes.
Have you experienced White House subs yet?
Oh, of course I have.
Okay, all right.
Because I'm
doing a trade show in your neck of the woods in August, potentially.
You are in Atlantic City?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I'm only like, let's let the cat out of the bag. I'm only 5 minutes from Atlantic City.
Yeah. So we should 2 things.
Yes.
Gorge over at White House and then go fishing.
Yes. I'll take you out on River X. We'll slam it up. We should do River X first, and then we'll do the subs.
That's a great idea, because otherwise we'll both be passed out in our kayaks.
Absolutely. I mean, I do that no matter what. I don't need the subs to add to it. All right, man. It's been great to have you on. One last plug. Let everybody know where they can find your content at.
Everything I do is over at Jigs and Bigs. We're on Instagram. Follow us over there. If you're catching big fish, DM us. We'd love to feature your pictures over there. And we're on all the major podcast platforms that are out there. You can follow our YouTube channel as well. We do occasional live streams, all kinds of good stuff.
Also, if you guys got really good shirtless pictures of dudes, definitely DM them also. Bobby, it's been great having you on. Thank you so much.
It's so weird you say that, because it's very rare that I DJ a wedding or a party for somebody that there isn't a bunch of random shirtless dudes and these are different groups of people every time. And I'm done fighting it. I'm just owning it.
Listen, you just got to have it on there.
It's fine.
All right, man. It's been great.
Good stuff, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you, man.
All righty.